Hello everyone and welcome to another segment of the ARC Service Park where I'm pleased to announce we have our first international guest, none other than MSport Forward Team Principal, Rich Millener. Good morning, Rich. How are you?
All right, thanks. Yeah, it's a nice sunny day here in England for once, and it has been for about 2.5 weeks, which is a shame with the situation we're in. But we're all okay over here. We're doing what we can and trying to get through this difficult situation.
It certainly is a difficult situation and it's grappling world motorsport. How is MSport dealing with it? And are you operational or are you on limited staff? Tell us a little bit about that.
So I think none of us really expected where we'd be at this moment, considering the situation we were in Mexico pretty much just a month ago when things were still working, the world was still kind of turning, and to where we are now, where it is something that we just never expected, and we've had to take some pretty drastic measures pretty quickly, which involved about 85%, 90% of the company is currently on a government scheme here in the UK where they're not in work and the government will support 80% of their wages up to a certain value. So it's by all means not a perfect scenario for everybody, but it does mean that people still have their jobs and still have some income. But with no motorsport worldwide at the moment, it's proving quite difficult because obviously the key core part of MSport is customer racing and rallying, and there's nobody able to do that at the moment. So every day that goes by, it gets a little bit harder. But I think the only kind of way we can look at it is we're not the only company in this position. We're not the only country in this position either, and we're hoping that we're now starting to see a turn, and the UK is hopefully getting on top of it along with most of the other countries. And in an ideal world, in the next couple of months, we hope that people will at least be allowed out to maybe test, or some countries maybe even do some single venue rallies or something, which could obviously start kickstarting things again for us. But it's just so difficult to know with the things changing every day of when reality is actually going to get anywhere close to normal. So keep going, keep crossing our fingers and staying positive. And obviously we're aware that the number one scenario that we need to sort out is the virus in general. But after that, we do need to hope that motorsport can get going again.
Absolutely, and I guess that's an interesting point. You said I guess we associate Ford MSport with just the World Rally Championship here, but and running a World Rally Championship team. However, you do have a large part of your business is customer based, and I guess that's sort of where you started with the business to the position you are in now. How do you see that affecting your business, and when things do get back to normal, do you think it's going to be a slow progression, being that there's so many customers and so many different businesses are taking a hit?
I think it's a difficult one to kind of understand how it's going to recover. If I'm trying to be the positive me, I look in the way that, like I mentioned, a lot of the people in the UK are on a government-backed scheme where they still have some income. So it's not as if at the moment everybody is using all their savings to live. So hopefully there's an opportunity that if things bounce back, they're still in a position to have a lot of people's disposable income is they spend it on motorsport and their joy and their kind of hobby. So I would hope that maybe there's an opportunity to bounce back and have some events. But in other countries, it's not that situation, and that may affect the number of competitors in the same way that some businesses will be hit harder. And we have a lot of customers that own businesses, big businesses and small businesses, and they're all having their own challenges and facing their own big problems in some ways. So we don't know how it will recover, but I expect that it will come back to the levels we were at, but we don't know how quickly. And we're going to have to just work with the customers and help them through these times, and hopefully they can bounce back. But it's such an unknown, and we're staying positive. We still have one person in the parts department. There are still some teams and some companies and some individuals rebuilding their cars over this period where they, if they can't go to work, they like to work on their hobby, which might be their car in the garage, and they find that they can still do some things. So there's still a little bit going on, which is great, but obviously it's nothing like what we used to or what we want. But again, it's just the situation we find ourselves in, and we've got to keep pushing. And it's been a frustrating few weeks for everybody to understand where this is heading. But I think we're all realistic now as to the scale of the situation. And hopefully these individual countries will recover. And I think, to be honest, the individual national championships will be what recovers quicker than the international stuff, because WRC, for example, is more difficult to move people around the globe to come to do rallies. Or you look at the stories of Formula One, you know, the paddock in F1 is nearly 1,000 people, and moving that number of people around freely at the moment is something that I think we're going to have to wait quite a while for. So yeah, we feel we'll be in a strong position when the national championships do start up, because that's been the bread and butter of what we've dealt with for a long time, and we can react very quickly and support well on those situations. So we're just prepping for the moment that people are allowed to do stuff, and then we'll be there to help anyone that's in good enough position that they can carry on, and we can get rallying back to normal.
You spoke about the national domestic championship, and here we're in a similar situation with the Australian rally scene, basically on a hold at the moment. I guess MSport's had a little bit of a on and off relationship in terms of customers out here in Australia. You know, I Can Wonder to Test obviously ran some R2 cars here for a period of time. We now see Millener with a Fiesta R5. Do you think that down the track, you know, a return to some sort of a regional rally car, a regional Fiesta is in the mix for some of these domestic championships, or we very much want to stick with the R5 formula?
I think R5 formula has been a category that's been incredibly successful all over the world, and you know, it's taken a while to get over to Australia, and we've been trying. And Luke flew the flag for us for a bit, and I still speak to him regularly actually, and catch up with him, and it's great to see a car over there. And I know that it kind of came in with your regulations for AP4 as well at the same time, so there was a bit of different directions for people, what choice they wanted to go with. I think now after a few years, the benefits of R5 has sunk in. Obviously, you've had people like Harry and the Toyota guys over there that have a different way to go, because they have the backing to be able to go AP4. So it's good that they fit in alongside each other and have a good fight. But I think R5 will probably continue to grow, because the prices are still stable. You know, we're in the very early stages of the Mark II R5 that we have, which seems to be proving popular, and hope we can get some more cars over there. And then FIA have released some information of their new category, which is New Rally 3, which is effectively the four-wheel drive variant of an R2 car, essentially. And that will be cost capped in the middle of R2 and R5. So I actually think that is going to be an incredibly good formula once it's all finalised. And of course, we are looking at that closely and seeing if there is anything we can do for that, as are most of the manufacturers, because I think everybody understands how much of a good category that could be if you could have performance in the middle, which is a bit like going back to your Group N, and halfway between R2 and R5. You know, that's a really good stepping stone that's currently missing, and potential to open up even more national markets. So WRC we're missing, but I think, you know, we got to look at the bigger picture, and our underlying customer base and customer work is what the company relies on. So it's great that there's some stuff and ideas and new categories coming. I just hope that it doesn't take too long for this situation to pass and we can get back on it. But I think, you know, people will be looking for the most cost-effective option when they come back to rallying, and this kind of category, along with R2, which we already have, is a cost-effective way of doing it. So I think it will come. It just depends on how long it bounces back, and I think each individual country will be different on that. Certainly,
you spoke about some new categories that the FIA are introducing, and we obviously see next year we go to Rally 1 with the introduction down the track of hybrid technology. Can you tell us a little bit about, is there a plan from MSport's point of view to follow that path?
Yeah, we've got some good communications and some good direction from Ford on that, and we're certainly working towards a 2022 car, which will have this hybrid powertrain in. So FIA have decided on who the tender's going to, and we're now going to start working on how we package and get that hybrid system to work within the car. The regulations are quite different for 2022, including the option to have a space frame shell. So go away from the manufactured standard body shell that we've seen for a long time. But apart from that, we will be keeping some of the key aspects of the car, the looks, performance we know needs to stay similar level. And I think it's a good opportunity to tell everybody that everyone that's worried about quiet electric rally cars, this hybrid system isn't going to do that. You're still going to have the sound and the excitement of the car. The hybrid is there just to increase the power and and make it more exciting. And we're looking at how that hybrid can be best used to add to the already great excitement that we have, because these current cars have given us some of the closest competition in years. So we want to replicate that, and we don't want to make huge changes. We know rally has to stay close to its DNA, but we also have to reflect how we move forward to go alongside the manufacturers who are all moving towards different forms of propulsion. And at the moment, we don't reflect any of that. So hybrid is important; it's got to come. But we're all very open and aware of not changing rallying too much.
You've been at MSport now for, I believe, approximately 13 years. You've seen a lot of high quality, high caliber drivers come through MSport in a lot of different machinery. Is there a standout combination that was a perfect match as far as you could see in terms of driver and car that sticks out in your mind?
I think it was just as I was getting more and more involved in the WRC program. Malcolm gave Oyt Tanak the opportunity to develop the 2017 car, and that was kind of what made it so successful, because we believe that Oyt was one of the best development and test drivers that we'd seen for a long time. And so when those dramatic regulation changes came around, the opportunity to develop a car and get it exactly as he wanted, because he was going to be our number one driver at the time. When we started developing that car, we never expected we'd have Seb Ogier. So he was involved and built it around himself. And I think he proved how good he was at designing it, because the end product has won 2 championships. And then everybody else that jumped in and went forward, that car's done incredibly well also. So I think that's the one that springs to mind. Then we had obviously people like Seb and Elvin driving it to help fine tune it. And obviously everybody's feedback is helpful, but it's amazing how many different drivers have different feedback on the same items. So you can test something that you think's perfect, and then before you know it, the next driver is telling you completely opposite to what the previous driver was. So you can go around in circles a little bit, but I think the base of what Oyt developed on that 2017 car was one of the best cars we've built out of MSport.
When Seb entered the team, I think it was a lot of joy and surprise that he'd made the decision to sit with you guys, and obviously delivering a world championship straight out of the box. What did that mean for the whole MSport? Obviously, it'd been a long time between drinks, but I remember being there at the finish of Rally Australia when he won the championship. It looked like there was a lot of emotion amongst the place. What did it do for everybody at MSport?
Well, personally, I'd never been really involved in the previous titles or championships that MSport won. So for me, I came in almost at the end of the last successes. It was kind of great to be involved in seeing go through some really tough times with not winning any events or championships, to getting to this point where all of a sudden we had the world champion in our team, along with Tanak. And I think we all thought straight away, well, we really have a good opportunity. And I've said before, when Seb came, it brought a new kind of enthusiasm to the team without changing anything. Overnight, the whole ethos and approach to championship changed for everybody, because everybody knew, right, hang on, this is our best opportunity. I'm not saying the drivers we had before didn't give us the opportunity, but I think we knew that things would have to go in our favour to be able to fight for a title against full manufacturer backing of other teams. But when Seb came, you kind of thought, well, he's got the experience, he knows what he's doing, he's got the form. He's come here knowing that he thinks the car's capable. He's not the type of driver that's going to jump into a car if he doesn't think it can win. So he came along, and we had the most perfect start in Monte Carlo when he won straight out of the box. And I think that was something that was quite really nice to be involved in, and for me to remember those kind of victories will always be something that I was there for. And then to go on to win the championship in 17 was incredible, but then to defend it as well in 18 was even more special. And in amongst that, we had our first wins for Oyt and Elvin. So we had 2 really special years, and I think some of the stuff that Oyt and Elvin achieved was off the back of Seb being there as well, because he not only raises the game of the other drivers, he was also behind the scenes very helpful to them, as helping them with decisions. And if you had to make a tyre call in the morning, and previously you weren't 100% sure which way you were going, and the engineers would speak with drivers and stuff, and we'd come up with what we thought was best. Someone like Seb would come in and tell you, no, this is what we're doing. I don't really care about the facts, thanks for them, but I know that this is the right decision, and that kind of confidence would rub off on the other drivers and then rub off on the team, and everyone was happy with what we were doing. And then once you're happy and confident, you drive better as well. So I think we were getting some good results off the back of that. There was, of course, some tough times where we fell behind in the championship, but we managed to get through again. And, you know, when you look back now, you think one of those what ifs, and if only we'd had a TV series made around those 2 years, I think it would have been fantastic. But we've got the memories in our minds at least, and it was great to see for the championship as well, especially that second year in 18, going down to the wire on your event in Australia, and you know, having a fight to the end of the championship was something we all really enjoyed. And I think there were two very special years for MSport, certainly for Malcolm and for the championship. And yeah, I would love to relive that opportunity and win another championship in the future. And I think our best bet as MSport now is for 2022 and try and get ahead of the other manufacturers when the new regulations come in. You know, we've seen it before in other forms of motorsport when Brawn F1 came in, and Brawn GP came into F1, and won the championship that year completely out of the blue. And then in some ways MSport were the underdogs to win in 17 and 18. So with a complete overhaul in 22, maybe that's our opportunity again. So we know that we can design and build competitive cars, and that's our forward thinking now. And yeah, we hope that someone like one of the drivers we've got now, or even one of the upcoming drivers like Adrian Formo, is able to help us get to that point in a few years' time.
Well, look, it's certainly, as an enthusiast, good to see that there is plan to stick around for the long haul from MSport. You mentioned a couple of times there Elvin Evans, and I guess from an Australian Championship point of view, he's the closest we've seen to a WRC driver compete out here. A bleat, it wasn't a fond memory for myself as well.
I don't think he got very far from memory.
Oh, no. Oh, I'm in big trouble now.
What was it like to see him move on to the opposition?
Yeah, it was a bit gutting, to be honest. I remember, it was one of these memories I'll always remember now. He rang me while I was in London for a meeting. Malcolm was in London for another meeting, and Elvin rang me around the time that we were discussing for this year. And he kind of said, "Is Malcolm there?" I said, "No, he's in another meeting in London, but I'm in London. Do you need him?" He said, "Oh, I think I need to speak to him." I said, "Well, where are you?" I said, "You're obviously not in England." So I kind of realised what was going on straight away. And, you know, at that point, it was just kind of the phone call we were waiting for and expecting in some ways. You know, I think if you were another manufacturer, you'd be crazy not to consider him, knowing that, you know, he was with us, and we were doing the best we could to keep hold of him, but our ability to pay wages for comparable to what the other manufacturers pay some of their drivers was pretty impossible for us. So the performances he put in during the year and has done over the last few years of his career showed that he really is capable of pushing forward, and we all knew what he was capable of, and we've seen it in the first 3 events this year. And I really hope that there's some more events so he can prove it continuing going through, because he's in a very strong position at the moment, and it's all been put on hold. But I think he would have been as strong as he is with Toyota with us if he'd stayed here. But I think just that extra little incentive of being at Toyota, knowing he went into the car that had won the championship the previous year, knowing that Boyd had moved on, working with Seb before, and knowing that this was his time to prove it, he was in such a good position that I think he kind of understood that. I think it's just kind of helped his enthusiasm go forward and his motivation, and he's pulling out some drives that other people just can't match. And one thing about Elvin is he's so systematic in the way he works, and he's so precise, and he's so reliable in some ways. You know, if you look at his records, he's nearly always finishing events. I think that's a key, and that's where Ogier's won a lot of titles, by always finishing. So I think Elvin had all the key attributes, and they finally come together this year. And personally, I don't think the car would have made a huge difference, be it with us or Toyota. I think he was just, as a person, ready to get to the point where he is now. So yeah, it was very sad to see him. Been here a long time, but I think we all kind of expected it and knew at some point someone else would be after him. We'll let him go there for a couple of years, and hopefully in 2022 we'll find some budget to bring him back. Maybe that would be a dream. But let's see what happens over the next few years. There's always new talent coming through. So, we had a great time with Elvin, and he's proving the point now, and he's still relatively early in his career, but you never know what's around.
We see a lot of development drivers coming through, particularly Skoda have been one that have done that quite well. To tell me, as a team principal and so invested in a WRC team, do you look abroad and do you look to championships like we have down here in Australia and what we have?
Yeah, I think Malcolm's looked all over the place over the years, and from people being recommended to him through people he trusts, all the way down to people like Petter, who wrote him a letter and sent him a video of him rallying, and that's where that one started. So I think MSport has always shown that we look everywhere, and the good thing that we have is that we built up the R2 championship, built up junior championship, built up the R5 category. So we have a lot of drivers in our cars that we can compare with and look at and see who's the next big step or who's the next big talent that's coming through. And a lot of the guys in the top level at the moment, be it top of R5 or WRC, have come through a Ford car at some point. They don't always come at the right time that we can become involved with them, but there's a lot of opportunities come through. Look at Gus, who's driving the third car at the moment. He's come through the junior championship and the R5 championship, and there's a lot of people with talent come through. But when you have more and more seat time, that is ultimately what gets you to the level of performance you need within WRC. So people like Gus having to make that difficult step from R5 to WRC, you're very quick in R5, but to go up to the level in WRC is the next hard step. So you do need to give people a bit of time to make that jump. And really, this was his kind of first big year in doing that, which has had a bit of a dent, like everybody's now, with the pause that we've got at the moment. But we know that it's going to be probably another 2-year period at this level to get up to the speed where you're able to prove yourself in that level. But at the same time, in the background, we've got to be looking at the next group coming through. So you have a flow all the way through. And, we've got Adrian Formo driving our 5 car this year for us, who's put in some incredible performances and so on. We're very excited about. And again, it's a real shame that his seasons had to take a pause as well, but everybody's has. So it will be very interesting to see who bounces back quickest when this all kind of levels off, and who can get back into the groove quickly, because no one's got any advantages of testing during this time or anything like that. Everybody is sat at home, and certainly most drivers are playing their sims at the moment, and it will be interesting to see if that's made any difference, because some are not doing anything and others are doing crazy amounts of sim work. So that will be an interesting one to watch. But I think, we're always looking for talent as it comes through, and there's certainly no boundaries on where they come from that makes us pick or choose. Ultimately, the fastest person is the one you want. So that's what we look for in general, not where or who they are.
But I guess the underlying message there is it's a bit more favourable if you drive a Ford. So maybe that's a message to some potential customers here in Australia. It's
certainly going to help.
I guess in finishing, want to get your thoughts on the current situation that is COVID-19, this coronavirus. And we spoke earlier before we went to air about the situation, and when do you think that we'll go rallying, and what will that look like in terms of the back half of the year? And logistically, how do you prepare for that?
We've had a tough time in WRC last few months, really, before this even began, from your event where we were all there and it just became impossible to run, which was a real shame to end the season like it did. It wasn't what anybody wanted. Monte Carlo was okay, and Sweden was very difficult with the conditions, and we didn't get full mileage. Mexico, this situation came in and we didn't get full mileage. Chile had been cancelled already. So WRC's taken a kicking, really. We want to get back to as it should be as quick as possible. But the problem we have is our sport relies on being outdoors in open spaces, and lots of people watching stages. And the underlying message worldwide, regardless of the country you're in, is social distancing and these various lockdowns, and doesn't fit well with our sport at the moment, which is very challenging for us all. But nevertheless, FIA, promoter and teams speak weekly about developments and how we can get back going again. Probably is just too early at the moment to tell where we are. Kenya are still keen to try and run an event. Finland are still keen to try and run an event, and there is plans to try and run the postponed events from earlier in this year later in the season, to give us a more busy end of the year, but keep a championship going. But with every week, we have to reanalyze. It's only today that Holland, for example, is saying they will have no mass sports events till September. UK is undecided. Places like Germany are saying, or France, sorry, are saying not until the middle of July. So whereas Austria, there is talks that they will try and run the Formula One there. So there is so many mixed messages all over. To make a plan is very difficult, but we need a plan in order to plan our logistics, our costings, our people, and everything. And everyone's got their own challenges. And I think even if you were to the biggest problem we've got is the uncertainty. Because even if you were to say, my event is in August, we're going to run, it's all okay. And then something happens and there's a second wave of this virus or something changes, and they have to reanalyze it later on. If the teams have already committed money, it's lost money for us, which is a bigger problem. And, it's very difficult, to be honest. We're all trying to stay as positive as we can. And none of us want to be doing no rallying because effectively all our careers are based around rallying. So we really hope that we can get going again in July, August. But we probably need a few more weeks. As much as we don't want to keep waiting, we need a few more weeks to see how the situation develops and how each country kind of reacts. But I think our biggest challenge will not necessarily be running the event. It will be, like I mentioned and touched on earlier, is about how we get all these people that are from different nationalities to these places to be able to compete together. Because the borders of each individual country seem to be the biggest sticking point as to when they will be open again. So we have to consider all these facts and then make the most sensible decision at that point. But it's a difficult one to predict at the moment. And unfortunately, I don't have any good positive answers which way we're going, apart from all knowing that we want to be there and want to rally as quick as possible. But there's a lot of things to consider about how we do that.
Definitely uncharted waters for many of us. Well, Rich, on behalf of everyone down under in Australia, thank you for taking the time out.
No problem. And I watched your first video the other day, and I have to say Harry's setup of his sim was quite incredible, really. The ironing board was the key feature. So if Harry improves his performances any more from that setup, then I know what we're missing. We don't need a big sim. We just need an ironing board and a sofa.